Hi, my name is Alan Handl, president of Handl Defense. Here to give you guys a little bit of information about the SCAR 25. We developed the SCAR 25 as an answer to some of the shortcomings of the SCAR 17. First off, the SCAR 17 low receiver is made out of polymer instead of aluminum, which could result in excessive flex. It's hydrophilic, so it could swell in wet climates, but also the issue of the magazine. The magazine is a proprietary design, and it can be quite expensive, ranging anywhere from $55 to $75 a magazine. Then you got to deal with availability. We decided to make a dedicated low receiver made out of aluminum, which would not only solve all the structural issues of the polymer, but would also accommodate the standard American SR25 M110 platform magazine, which you guys also know as the Knights Armament magazine, Stoner magazine. Magpul makes a variant of it as well. Obvious cost difference with the Magpul, being approximately 3 to 1, as well as having magazine compatibility over other platforms in the AR-15 308 type weapon system. So we developed this receiver. It's made out of 100% 7075 billet aluminum, among a lot of other advancements that we utilize in the engineering of this lower, which you could read up on handldefense.com. But today we're going to show you how simple it is to install your SCAR 17 lower parts into your new Handl Defense SCAR 25 lower receiver. This is a SCAR 17S. We're going to do the lower receiver conversion to this, the new Handl Defense SCAR 25 receiver. First thing that you want to do is verify your weapon is on safe and the weapon is unloaded. Then you could place the weapon down, take your front pivot pin, push it out, it'll unclick. You could then just apply some pressure to the back of the lower receiver, and the receiver will slide forward and you can remove it from the rifle. And then you go ahead and just put the rifle aside. So here we are going to show the disassembly of the SCAR 17S lower receiver. A few of the tools that you're going to need is a dead blow hammer, a soft mallet, a needle nose pliers with a curved tip, a small set of needle nose pliers, a dental pick, flathead screwdriver similar to eyeglasses that you would get out of an eyeglass kit, a 3/32 punch, a 5/64 roll pin punch, a 1/16 roll pin punch, and a 3/16 T-handle. I like to normally work from front to back of the receiver. First order of business is taking out the front takedown pin. All you do is pull the pin out, rotate it so that way the spring clip, the loop is faced to the top. Take your small needle nose pliers, grab on the clip, and just pull out just under spring tension. Then you take your pivot pin, set it off to the side. Next step, you're going to want to deal with the bolt catch. The only complicated part of the bolt catch is there's a small C-clip on the inside. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get out. It's under spring tension. It will go flying if you're not paying attention. So make sure that you're in a clear area where it's not going to, fall into a couch or something. Just take a roll pin and your needle nose pliers. And you can just slide it in. Actually, I want to use the pick. Just slide it in the side and just pry up on the C-clip. Just pop that into the mag well, put the C-clip aside. Then your bolt catch is free to move back and forth. You would want to move the bolt catch all the way to the left as far as you could go, which will expose the entire roll pin on the left. I'm right-handed, so normally the easiest way for me to do it is lay the receiver down using my left hand middle finger to pull up on the bolt catch, which will pull the whole assembly to the left, fully exposing the pin. Take your 1/16 roll pin punch and just stick it to the side of the roll pin. Sometimes you're able to just push it right out, because the nice thing about the FN low receiver is the roll pins are captured by the receiver, not under spring tension like you're normally used to. Just go ahead and try to push it out. If it will not just slide right out, might want to just give it a little bit of motivation with your dead blow hammer. So again, just keep holding up on the bolt catch, and then with my pointer finger and my thumb, I just hold on to the punch and just kind of tap it out a little bit. Keep in mind, if you're not using a dead blow hammer that's wrapped in plastic, you will mar the receiver. So if you're using a wooden mallet or a metal mallet, make sure you tape up the receiver. So your bolt roll pin, your bolt hold open roll pin will come out. Place that to the side. It's your bolt catch spring. And then your bolt catch assembly could just slide right out the side. And then you also have your bolt catch O-ring, which is necessary. Next step I normally do will be the magazine latch. The magazine latch, you'll see there's a groove on the side of the receiver. That's for your punch. So take your 5/64 punch. What I normally do is I stand the receiver upside down like so, press it down so it's flat. Just stick your roll pin right in the hole and just give it a little motivation with your dead blow. Roll pin will come right out. I would put your hand over the button as you pull out your punch. Then you could slowly let out the pressure on the button, your magazine catch spring, and your magazine catch will come out the other side. Then your final step is disassembly of the trigger pack. It might make it a little easier to take the grip off first. So to do that, just flip the trigger pack upside down. Take your 3/16 Allen wrench or T-handle. Just start to unscrew. Keep in mind when you're unscrewing, we have seen in some FN receivers that the screw is actually cross-threaded into the grip nut. So be careful not to break off your bolt inside the receiver. Pull your grip out and remove the grip nut. Now this grip nut is not needed with the Handl Defense SCAR 25 because we made it out of aluminum. We drilled and tapped the lower receiver that way you can install grips similar to an AR-15. Then your next step in disassembling the trigger pack is to remove the right-hand side selector lever. So for that, you want to take your eyeglass flathead screwdriver and unscrew the dowel pin on the top of the selector lever. Sometimes these are press fit on, so you might need to take a flathead screwdriver and pry up on the back, or just grab onto them and yank them off. Put that off to the side. Make sure that the weapon is in the cocked position and put a little pressure on the selector side and press, and the selector will come right out. Pull the trigger and ride the hammer forward so it doesn't slam, releasing the tension on the hammer spring. Use your needle nose pliers with the curved tip. Grab on to the front of the guide rod, pull back and up, and your hammer spring will come right out. You're then able to take your 3/32 punch. Right here is your side plate. Your side plate is what holds all the pins in place so they don't walk out on you while you're firing your weapon. There's a little notch cut out in the front of the plate. Stick your punch in there and just simply pull to the rear, which will unlock the front pin. Want to pivot it up and out of the way, and the side plate comes out. I normally pull the trigger and slide the hammer forward. You're then able to also use your 3/32 punch, apply a little bit of pressure to the hammer pin, pull the hammer pin out, hammer comes out, hammer pin. Slide out your bolt spring guide, and then your trigger pin. What I normally do with this is I use my 3/32 punch, push on one side of the pin, just to get me just to push the pin out just a little bit on the other side. And then I normally put my hand over the top of the receiver so this the trigger and the disconnect spring and disconnect don't go flying everywhere. Pull the pin out, shake out all the internals, and then also your selector lever and spring, or your selector detent and spring will come out with it. Place those parts off to the side, and there's your disassembly of the SCAR 17S lower receiver. So now we're going to do the assembly of the SCAR 25 lower receiver. I normally start with the trigger pack on the assembly. So the first thing you want to do is grab your trigger assembly. Your trigger assembly will consist of the trigger, your disconnect, your trigger spring, your disconnect spring, and your trigger pin. Slide your trigger, drop it in to the lower receiver. Take your trigger spring. Now your spring, the open ends of it face down to the bottom of the receiver with the curves facing up. The upward part of the spring goes underneath the trigger. So normally what I do is lift the trigger up with your fingers, slide the spring underneath, take your trigger spring, slide it through the hole, and normally I'll just capture one hole at a time, sliding it through one side of the spring, then through one side of the trigger, just holding it in place, and take the disconnect spring, and you'll clearly see in the trigger there's a disconnect spring divot. Just put that right in there. There's a divot in the disconnect where the disconnect spring goes in. Obviously line up the hole with the trigger pin. Press down and put pressure on the trigger pin until it slides forward. Push it through the other side of the spring. And then out the other side of the receiver. Your next step is to install the hammer. You're going to need the hammer and the hammer pin. Here's your hammer will slide into the front, and your hammer pin will go through the left side of the receiver, through the hammer, out the right side of the receiver, holding it in place. Keep in note that the hammer needs to be oriented more to the right of the receiver, exposing this notch right here, because this is what the side plate locks into to keep your trigger assembly locked into a low receiver. Slide your hammer in, line up the hole on the left hand side of the receiver, and simply slide in the pin. Your next step is to put in the hammer spring guide. Obviously there's a larger end of the pin and then a smaller end of the pin. Put in the corresponding holes, slides in. I have to give it a little love tap. Take your needle nose pliers, grab your selector spring, drop it down the hole, your selector detent, slide it right on top. The reason why I do this now is because it's a lot easier to put it in when you don't have the hammer spring over the top. Grab your needle nose pliers with the curved tip, grab onto the front where the half moon is, slide it into the hammer spring retaining guide, pull back, and just slide that puppy into place. So now I'm going to show you the orientation of the hammer spring and the hammer spring retainer. Notice on the hammer spring retainer, one end has a large hole, one end has a small hole. The large hole faces forward of the receiver in order to capture the entire spring. Small hole faces to the right, where the large hole faces to the left. The spring goes into the retainer, and as the hammer rotates, you can see the spring will protrude through the back of the retainer, holding the spring inside, where this half moon shape will clip onto the hammer, as you can see here. So it would look similar to this assembly, or similar to this orientation inside your rifle when it's installed. Sometimes if it's a little binding up a little bit on the spring, take a set of pliers and just slightly rotate the hammer spring retainer, and it'll move freely. Your next step is to put your retaining plate in. Slide the back end into the hammer spring retainer. And it'll slide all the way forward. And then it's kind of you kind of have to work around the hammer, slide it down a little bit, lock the hammer to the rear, and the plate will continue down into place. Take your 3/32 punch, grab it, place it right on the back of the plate, and just come forward on it. Or, I'm sorry, your trigger spring will be installed approximately here. Then your hammer spring would be installed approximately here. You would then rotate the retaining plate down, and then as you press it forward, it locks into the hammer spring, moving the plate forward, still engaging in the hammer spring retainer, and locking all 3 pins in like such. The way you know it's in all the way is if you look through the selector hole. If you don't see the plate, you're in all the way. So for this particular instance, it's where a brass punch sometimes comes in handy. Put the hammer forward, put the punch on the back. Just knock that into place. Brass punches are great for non-marring. Put your hammer back down, take your safety selector, bring it in from the left side of the receiver, bring it all the way through, and it'll just snap right into place. Then you take your other selector lever, put that on the side, your drilled dowel pin for the selector lever, slide that in. Use your eyeglasses flathead screwdriver and just screw that right in. And there your trigger pack is assembled. Your next step is to install your magazine catch. So grab your magazine catch, slide it in the left side of the receiver, flip it over. The way I hold it is I normally put my middle finger over the catch so it doesn't fall out. Slide your magazine catch spring. And then with the button, what you want to do is grab the magazine button roll pin and the button and just manually just slide it into the button. It's not under a lot of tension, and just kind of bring it right to almost where it goes through the hole. So that way the roll pin is just sticking out the top. Stick it on the magazine catch and just push in. And what you're looking for is the magazine catch and the button will become flush. Then you're able to take your roll pin, punch, your 5/64, and just press down. Just press down on it to lock it into place, and then just give it a little tap. So now we're going to install the bolt catch assembly. Take your bolt catch assembly, slide it through the left side of the receiver until it slightly protrudes in the open slot. Take your needle nose pliers and the plastic O-ring and slide it onto the bolt catch assembly before it goes through the right side of the receiver. So the bolt catch spring slides into the bolt catch housing like so, and the bolt catch roll pin could just slide into the side of the housing. It doesn't even need to be hammered in or anything if you have the holes lined up properly. As you see, the nipple on the back of the bolt catch will index on the spring, slide in, and then you're able to slide the roll pin essentially by hand. Push it partly through. Make sure you don't go too far because you need to have access to the holes on the left side of the bolt catch. Then what would be a good idea is to utilize a little bit of blue tape so you don't accidentally scratch your receiver. What I do is I put the blue tape right on the little ear near the bolt catch. Just a little safety precaution. Then you could take your bolt catch roll pin and you could just simply, with your fingers, just slide it in so it's not protruding through all the way. And then what I do to hold it in place is just push it in a little bit further and it'll hold that bolt catch in. Then take your bolt catch spring, slide it into the assembly, and then your bolt catch. Now with your bolt catch, it has to pivot in. So there's a little nipple on the back side of the bolt catch which locks into the spring. Then you want to bring the bolt catch up and over and slide it into place. Might want to take a peek on the left hand side, try to line up the holes. Take your roll pin punch. Just try to push in. If it doesn't want to go in freely, as long as your holes are lined up, you can give it a little love. Again, you might want to put a little bit of tape on the side of the receiver, just because this is an aluminum receiver and not a plastic one, just to protect it. Just go ahead and give it a little motivation and go in. Then you could push the bolt catch in the remainder of the way and remove the tape. Your next part is to put in the little C-clip. This is the biggest pain in the neck part in the entire install. So grab it firmly with your needle nose pliers. I'd probably keep your hand over the receiver and make sure it doesn't spring out. Guide it into place, then use your punch to press it in. If you notice on the bolt catch assembly, there's a little groove. This groove will protrude inside this opening here. And you should see that the groove right on the other side. And what I recommend doing is using a set of needle nose pliers, like so, when sliding it on the bolt catch. So it'll essentially lock in like so, which will prevent the bolt catch assembly from moving in and out left to right, and that's what captures your bolt catch assembly inside your lower receiver. So once that C-clip is in place, just take your front pivot pin and your pivot pin retainer. Here's your front takedown pin, and here's your front takedown pin clip. As you see, there's indentations on two ends of the clip. When you install it into your lower receiver, you want to slide it into the hole, put the clip and slide the clip on top, and the clip will lock into place like so. There's a groove right here in the lower receiver, which will allow you to place the clip down into the channel, locking it into the pin. Take your pin, slide it in the hole, take your retaining spring, and clip it into place. And the last step is a grip. Take your 3/16 T-handle and your grip and just install same way you would an AR-15 pistol grip. And that completes the assembly of the SCAR 25 lower receiver.